So we should probably move on to the second thing you mentioned, co-chairing the BPF standardization.
Oh, yes.
So before that, you're doing that with the IETF. I'm sure the very tech nerds know about the IETF, but there's probably another one that people don't know who that is.
Oh, you have to be like a special kind of tech nerd to be up in the IETF. So, IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, is a standards body that has created standards for a lot of different parts of the internet, like BGP, Border Gateway Protocol, QUIC, like a lot of old TCP/IP packet formats and stuff like that. So they're a very robust, well respected standards body. Um, and yeah, we wanted to we shopped around for which standards bodies we wanted to go with, and we had no. I've never standardized anything. I don't think anybody else in the BPF community had. So we decided on the IETF because they had a lot of experts there to help us do it right.
So what was the well, I I did see in the document that BPF is also used outside of the kernel as well. So I guess that's why it's
Yes.
a concern for it to be standardized.
So that's one of the concerns. Yeah, there's something called UBPF, which is user space BPF.
Mhm.
Um, like I was mentioning earlier, BPF has its own instruction set. So if you compile into BPF bytecode,
Mhm.
theoretically it could run like any other JIT. It could be cross-platform, just like a JVM program could run across any platform theoretically. So we wanted to standardize for software reasons. The big reason though is because there are hardware vendors that are building support for offloading BPF programs to devices as well, and that's a big investment for companies that do that. And there have been companies already, like a company called Netronome, that's built BPF offload even without the standard. But that's a little bit of a special case, and so we've been hearing from vendors that this is something that they want. This is something that they kind of need before they'll actually be willing to invest the money in it.
Mhm.
And like a lot of the trend of the tech industry right now is going towards offloading, like for networking, offloading TLS, like transport layer security. So you're doing encryption and decryption on the actual NIC itself instead of having to go all the way to the CPU to do it. Um, yeah, it's with like now that we're not doubling our compute capacity every 18 months, these kinds of things are what we're sort of where we're going. And so BPF, I think it's a really nice middle ground between having nothing and having an ASIC that costs like $1 billion to build. So, uh, hardware is hard. It's hard for us to predict what we should be standardizing to accommodate hardware without kind of making it too hard for them, and also giving them kind of the guardrails to build something that's going to be worth it.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the idea. I think more than software, it's definitely for the hardware vendors, but everybody does benefit from it.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that definitely makes sense. How long's this been in progress for?
Let's see. This has been in progress officially since I think March 2023.
Oh, it's a fairly new thing
Um,
then.
it's pretty new. Yeah, yeah. And so there you can actually Google like the BPF IETF working group, and we have this charter where we have all of these documents that we're intending to write. Some of them are standards documents, others are what are called informational documents. So they're
Mhm.
basically like our suggestions for like ABI and whatnot, but they're not actually standards that you need to follow. Um, but it's pretty new, yeah, and we're pretty close to going to last call for the instruction set standard, the ISA standard, and that's the first that'll be the first document. So we're really excited for that. But if that continues to go well and we find that we need to keep going, then this is going to be like a long process. I don't know if I'm going to stay as chair the whole time. I don't know if I have the energy for that, but it'll be a long road for sure.
So, has there been any? Obviously, you can't say anything that maybe off the books, not allowed to say it. But like, has there been any sort of pushback with the approach to standardization or the idea of standardization or anything like that?
Actually, not really. There have been some people at the IETF that didn't think that BPF was the right fit
Mhm.
because they're more used to standardizing like protocols and like packet formats and stuff. They're not really used to standardizing like JIT runtimes, right? It's a different approach for them. But so there were some people at the IETF that didn't think it was a good idea. We're still there. Um, in terms of people in the industry, we haven't really gotten much pushback from anybody on that specific point. Um, and I think it's not super surprising. I mean, it's for better, like even for people that don't really like BPF, it's just too big, and we need to standardize it at this point. I mean, the de facto standard right now is just whatever we do in the Linux kernel, and everybody kind of follows along, which is great for us, but it's not really like conducive to growing a global community around the technology. So so I think everybody's okay with it. Yeah.
So, give me a second. Happened again.
No
I
problem.
had something. I lost it again. What was I gonna say? Right. So, considering the history that IETF has with the things that they've typically been involved in standardizing, why specifically go through working with them?
So yeah, we thought about working with a few different people. We thought about working with Oasis, which is what VertIO went through. We thought about doing just publishing the standard through the eBPF Foundation, which is a subsidiary of the Linux Foundation. They haven't standardized anything, and I think amongst the three, it's probably not controversial for me to say that IETF is definitely the most rigorous and has like the most kind of oversight and processes. And so for us, we wanted it to be a good quality standard, and you can certainly do that with Oasis. Nothing against Oasis, but we just needed, none of us had experience with standardizing anything, so we just needed the help. Like, yeah, we we were talking about doing like ISO standards and all this stuff, and we just didn't know what was involved at all, and so they were able to come in and kind of give us the standard side of it, and we're giving the technical side, and there are people that are thankfully experts in both that are helping. But more than anything, it was definitely just the prestige of the organization, the oversight they were willing to give us, and kind of the handholding they were willing to do, and then ultimately just we thought it was going to be best for the community.
So you would say it's very much been a learning experience for you then, just trying to understand how these standards even really, how you would even go about structuring it, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like a lot of it is just doing what other people do, right? Like one of the things we were trying to come up with recently was how should we group BPF instructions, into what are called conformance groups. And what that means is, like, if you want to conform to a part of the standard, you have to implement all of the instructions in this group, or else you're not conformant. And so, do we group atomic instructions? Do we group division, multiplication? What do we do? And we were bike shedding on this for a really long time. And then finally, I just went to the RISC-V standard, and I was like, we're just going to do what RISC-V does. Okay, like that's it. And I think that's actually not an incredibly dumb idea, because a lot of hardware vendors are using RISC-V, and so it makes sense. RISC-V has conformance groups as well, and so that's sort of what we've been doing.